Going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, the Fitchburg Bicycle Committee, and we will, we need to do a roll call, so I guess we'll start with that. And I'm just going to do it by who's sitting on my screen here. So I'll start with Miranda.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
Phil.
I'm here.
And Alder Maldonado.
Here.
Okay, and I'm here. So we have 5 members on the call here, and we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. And the first order of business is approval of the draft minutes, which is in the packet that is out there on the website from February 1st. So we'll entertain some discussion along that right now.
So I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
So I do have one comment.
Yes, go ahead, Andy.
Under staff present, it just says that Andrew McFadden left at blank and that Wade Thompson joined at blank. Oh. If we don't have the times, that's fine. We can just strike those, but yeah, I'll put in the and we'll just get rid of them.
Yep, it looks like I left myself a Mad Lib in the middle of the meeting and forgot to go fill it out. So I'll get that done. Thanks.
Okay.
So is there approval to accept the minutes with the amendment suggested by Mr. Potts?
So moved.
Moved by Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Miranda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda are there any appearances for non-agenda items? I see who's on the Zoom call, and Andrew mentioned there's nobody in chambers. Is that still correct, Andrew? Okay. All right. So
yes, there is no one in chambers, and your committee member Joe is in chambers now.
Okay. Oh, Joe Imokowski's there. So, hello, Joe. Hello. Joe's on our committee, so he's not under item number 3. So we're going to move right into the agenda since I'm sure everybody's got a busy day today. Item number 4 are the agenda items, and first is the resolution R5722. So Phil, we'll turn it over to you. Phil.
All right, sounds good. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the packet really quickly here. That's the one thing I didn't have pulled up on my screen yet. So I don't think this should take terribly long. If you've all had a chance to look at this, this is something that we already discussed in February, I believe. I applied for a couple grants in January. One of them was with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and it is this is some funding that the DOT has from a Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act from the Obama administration. And this particular grant is a Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP grant. I worked with Mark, with Angela at the chamber, and with our representatives at B-Cycle and a couple other city staff to try to put together an expansion of the B-Cycle program that we're already planning for Fitchburg. So right now, CETA is looking at committing $50,000 from this year's budget to get the B-Cycle bike share program into Fitchburg. They're working with the Chamber of Commerce and B-Cycle to try and get some local sponsors as well. So we'd like to get those what we're calling phase 1 stations put up in some of Fitchburg's central corridor down to Fish Hatchery, over around McKee Farms Park, Lacey and McKee Road. Because the chamber is contributing to this, we're also making sure to include a couple of our tourism spots, essentially, so a couple of hotels, so that visitors to Fitchburg can take advantage of this as well. So we're looking at with phase 2 of the program, and that's what this TAP grant is about, is trying to expand the footprint of this program out into other areas of Fitchburg, particularly residential areas, particularly residential areas where supplemental transit would be particularly useful. So we're talking about getting up to the North Fitchburg hub. Once that's up and running, we want to get a dock there. We're looking at trying to get out towards Terra Vesa. I hope eventually, this isn't part of the plan right now, but I hope eventually up towards that sort of Rimrock Road Novation area that's currently part of town of Madison that we're going to absorb. And then also over by like the Allied Drive area and hopefully something west of Verona Road. So really trying to expand this footprint. So what this resolution is about is essentially the final part of the application for this TAP grant is submitting a resolution from council that says that they approve this grant, and also they will, they're committing the city to ensure that there is local match for the grant. So it's a roughly $400,000 project to do this phase 2 expansion, given the calculation that the DOT puts together, we would end up needing to pay just over 25% of that, so about $105,000. And that can be all from the city. It could be all from local sponsors. It could be a match or some kind of combination of the two of those. But this resolution says that we approve the grant, and we will make sure that that local match is funded if we receive the grant. And just as a little bit of how the sausage is made, I haven't had a number of conversations with our DOT representatives, and I'm very confident that if we get this resolution passed, sorry, I just started getting some feedback. If we do get this resolution passed and submitted as part of our application, nothing's been signed yet, but pretty confident that we're going to end up getting funded by the DOT. And I think I've got my, sorry.
No, I was going to say questions or comments for you is what I was going to say. For Phil from the committee. I think, as he said, everybody's been aware of the hard work that went into this. So I think thanking city staff is first and foremost on our agenda, as well as our alder on the council who's been behind this as we got it started. I think it's definitely going to help hit some of the underserved areas as phase 2 goes through. So I think, Phil, you next need a motion for this committee to approve, correct?
Oh, right. Yeah, probably needed that before I started talking.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So again, is there discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Andy.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second? Second, Miranda, did you second that?
I did.
Okay. All right, then we're going to keep moving forward and go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, Phil, the motion's approved to take to our council. I think it's next week. Is that correct, or in 2 weeks?
Yes, April 12th. So we already had this approved by CETA 2 Thursdays ago. Next Tuesday, the 12th, is going to be Finance Committee and Common Council, which gives us plenty of time to then submit the resolution before the deadline of the 18th.
Yeah, that one key point, Alder Maldonado, as Phil brings it before your committee, your group, it's got to be approved or we won't get the grant. There's got to be a council support. So if you could help us push this through, help Phil push this through, it would be appreciated.
Absolutely. I don't think this will be very controversial. This is a good move for the city.
Yeah, and I know the mayor's behind it too, so I think you're right. So thank you. All right, I'm going to keep us moving forward. Next, we have bicycling related events in and around Fitchburg. Phil, you're on.
All right, let me pull up my packet here. So if you've gone through the packet, you've already seen this already. I'm not going to go deep into anything. If anyone wants to talk about it, feel free. May next month is National Bike Month. There is a National Bike to Work Week, May 16 to 22, and this is promoted by the League of American Bicyclists. In Madison, we tend to put a little bit more emphasis in terms of activities on Wisconsin Bike Week, which is going to be June 4 to 11. I don't think I've heard anything specific yet. Mark, do you know, or Andy, is Bike Fitchburg doing a station at the bike roundabout again this year?
Yes, they are talking about that. I'm giving Steve Arnold's report today. I was going to give that. So I've got 2 more after you go through these to add.
Great. But yeah, so Wisconsin Bike Week, June 4 to 11. Saris, this is actually coming up sooner than this. I should have started with this. Saris is holding a gala to, this is a fundraiser to help promote bike programs, particularly bike programs for youth in the area. They sent a notice to me and a couple other city staff in particular for the gala this year because of the bike playground that they're working on at the North Fish Hatchery Hub. So there's, always a good cause to support, but also this year it's a little bit more relevant for Fitchburg. I believe you can find information on the Saris Gala online if you want to attend. I think it's around $50. I'd have to go double check that. If you can't find it, let me know and I can direct you to information on it. The last one is that this year Ride the Drive is canceled. Madison is they have not gotten fully back up to staff with parks staff yet, is my understanding. And just with everything else that they need to get done, they don't have the bandwidth this year to plan and carry out the Ride the Drive. So they're hoping to bring that back in 2023. And Mark?
So I'm going to add two more. Number one is July 7th is the Fitchburg Festival of Speed over on Promega, over by Promega, and there will be a family fun ride. It's sponsored by the Fitchburg Family Pharmacy. You can sign up at that online, and I think that at the same time, I've done this in the past. It's about a 28 mile ride early in the morning before the events start. The other thing, just for members of the bike committee, the Bike Fitchburg's thinking about doing some other things. In addition to having a booth there, they were talking about, did we do some kind of skills thing and working with race day events to make this whole thing more family fun. If you're free that Saturday, it is a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot more this year than there's been in the past. There's going to be 3 bands, et cetera, but that's February 7th or July 7th. The other thing is, FYI, is July 16th is the annual move for BGC going out of McKee Farms Park. It is a run, a walk, and there are 3 bike routes. I'm serving on that committee. We'll be working, everything's set up with the city. We'll be working with our police as it gets closer to the event. But those are biking events that are around the city. Lastly, for the minutes, if there's anybody looking to volunteer for either the Fitchburg Festival of Speed or the Boys and Girls Club ride, both folks are looking for volunteers. So does anybody else have anything that we might have missed?
Oh,
I do.
Okay. All right.
I'll let Andrew go.
Oh, the Brat Fest, if we sign up to volunteer at the Brat Fest and we say we're from Bike Fitchburg, then a certain amount of money will be donated back to Bike Fitchburg.
That's a good thing. I'm cooking brats at 6 o'clock on Friday morning that weekend.
Yeah, so any spot that anybody might want to sign up for.
It's the weekend of May 27 and 29, I believe.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Joe, you had something to add?
This is Joe at the council chambers. Can you hear me?
I'm working with,
There we
Wait
go.
1 second, Joe.
hey, all, can you hear me? Can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm working with Dream Bikes and the Wisconsin Bike Fed to plan a series of events.
You're cutting out, Joe. Joe, we're not getting any of this. Sorry.
To finalize with a flyer, but just sorry. Can you hear me?
All right. Can you hear me now?
You're pretty
Yes.
choppy,
Can
but
you
you
hear
just
me?
cleared up.
Okay. So I'm working with the Wisconsin Bike Fed along with Dream Bikes to plan a series of events in and around Fitchburg. They're going to be in late April and throughout May. So the dates, I don't have them in front of me, but it'll be the last Friday in April, the first Friday in May, and then the following 4 Tuesdays. And they'll be from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The first 2 will be at
Do
Luna's
you want to
Groceries.
move? Stay here.
The The second two will be at King James Way Park, otherwise known as Pocket Park. And then the last two will be at Western Hills Park. And the Parks Department is co-sponsoring the four events that'll be in Fitchburg Parks. So we'll be having bike repair stands, and we'll also be having bike rodeos. And I'll make sure to communicate that with Bike Fitchburg and with this committee via email so that folks can volunteer if they're interested.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say Bike Fitchburg would certainly jump on that because we're talking bike rodeos as part of our goal journey. So that's great news. I got more on bike rodeos from Bike Fitchburg later on in this meeting, but that's great news, Joe. Joel Mikowski, are you trying to get to share something?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Okay, there,
I
test
was
1, 2, 3,
asking
4.
I think Joel Mikowski's trying to say something. The other Joe.
Okay, I'm at the city council chambers and we're having technical difficulties.
Okay.
All right, good to know. Joe Maldonado, if you can email those details out to us when you get a chance. I think it's about time for me to update the city's biking website with upcoming events, and that sounds like something to be really good to publicize on the city's site.
Yeah, a flyer is going to be coming out within the next day or two.
Awesome.
That's
Great.
fantastic.
Yeah, looking forward to helping where we can, Joe. Congrats. Okay, Phil, any other biking events?
Nothing I know of.
Okay, then next item on the agenda is an update on projects from Phil and Andrew. Item 4C.
I'm not going to do a screen share this time. It's a lot of stuff we've talked about in the past. Not any huge updates. The South Cyene rework is still continuing apace. We've got our transportation project plat approved. That's something that was brought up in February, and we're expecting 90% plan completion as soon as possible is the timing update I've got on that. The Lacey Road, west of Seminole Highway rework is delayed right now. That's likely to begin in 2023 rather than 2022. So just a little bit slower timeline on that. And not directly biking, but biking adjacent, certainly. The Madison Metro update. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look into this, but there have been a couple of public meetings on the Madison Metro update. Andrew just worked with the Madison Metro staff to give an update meeting last week on Monday, I want to say. I believe that video has been archived by Fact TV. But the short version is Madison Metro has been working with their partners to update their network design over the last year or two. And one of the big things they've been talking about is whether to focus more on coverage, so get as many routes as possible, as close to as many homes as possible, or sorry, that would be the coverage map versus ridership, where you have a little bit smaller footprint with your network, but try to get as many buses going as frequently as possible to increase ridership. And they've kind of done a mix of those, a little bit more oriented towards ridership than coverage, as opposed to recent maps. It was a good presentation. There were some good helpful maps that they showed on there. It looks like most of Fitchburg is going to increase the based on the studies that they put together. It looks like most of Fitchburg's residents who will use the bus will be able to increase the distance they can cover in 45 minutes between walking to a bus stop and then getting somewhere. But it does mean that a couple of the routes that we're maybe familiar with are being pared back a little bit to focus more on kind of the central corridors and getting more frequent bus service. But not a ton more to add there. I'd definitely just encourage you, if you're interested in this, to go check out some of those presentations. I don't know if there's anything else of note that I missed, Andrew, or sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I have a question for you and Andrew, but I'll wait till you. I thought you were done.
Yeah, that's
okay.
all I have for
Andrew, good morning. Two questions for you. One is, we have talked off and on in this committee since I've been involved with about Wayland Road. And as ARPA came forward, Wayland Road was in the list of things. And I guess I just want to know what the status is of that, because I was asked that at Bike Fitchburg the other night at their meeting. So if you could answer that, and then also I got a second question about Cyene Road, so.
So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's, the ARPA is a spending plan. I think that, as you guys are well aware, so I think we're looking at what that CIP project would be and the timing of that. That's kind of part of some of the projects that we're exploring right now, among potentially Irish Road with bike facilities and South Fitch-Rona Road with bike facilities. So that's kind of that next bullet of potential projects. And so, certainly I think that's one of the ones that we're looking at. Obviously, scabbing on bike lanes is less ideal than just doing full reconstructs with them. So that's one thing that we're considering. But yeah, we know that there's some direction from the spending plan to include that. And so we're working about how to do that.
Okay, all right. So it's still to be determined.
Yep.
Okay. Second question relates to Seminole Highway. I heard, in the packet, Phil's noted that Lacey Road's been delayed to 2023. Is that roundabout still going to be done in 2022 at Seminole and Lacey, or is that on delay too?
Yeah, so the intention is that both projects are done together. Just from a mobilization standpoint, we're going to get a better deal from the contractor, and also just from a kind of hassle standpoint, closing down two separate construction seasons seems like it's particularly onerous for folks getting around. So, our original intention, once we kind of got pushed a little bit with real estate acquisition, was to do it in kind of two construction seasons, but that just really not making that much sense. We're pushing both projects currently as kind of proposed, unless there's a particular reason why we have to do it this year to 2023, just so we can do it all in one construction season and minimize impact.
That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Yeah. Last question relates to the Boys and Girls Club bike ride. They typically come across Cyene Road. Will access from the east, will the 50-mile ride, will east access, will you be able to get across Cyene Road as you tear it up and begin construction this summer?
Where do they typically come across? At Lacey or at?
Well, it varies. I'm going to follow up with you offline because I'm working on their routes, but they do come across Cyene Road coming back into Fitchburg. And I just want to be certain we don't make our route plan and have, a couple hundred riders out there with nowhere to get across. So that's just a heads up. Don't change your schedule. I just got to know what the schedule is going to be so we can work around it.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, let's coordinate on that.
Thanks. Thank you, Phil. That's all I had. You were next on the agenda with the exciting one. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got the, looks like a Fitchburg Transit Plan update. So I can, Andrew, if you'd like, I can pull that up if you want to give an overview on this here.
Yeah, so this is kind of fortuitous timing of, this plan, I think originally written back in 2010, called for kind of being updated annually or kind of somewhat regularly. I don't think it has been. So I thought this would be a good time. TTC kind of pushed for trying to make sure we were updating some of these plans. And it's just fortuitous timing with the network redesign of kind of how can we do both at the same time. So this, as draft currently, the plan right now would be to get this to council in May. And unfortunately, it didn't work out great with your guys' timing. So, but we wanted to make sure you guys had a chance to review it. And particularly what this lays out is kind of it references the comp plan and the kind of goals, objectives, and policies. It lays out some specific, goals for the transit plan, and then lists actions and performance measures to how to obtain those goals. And so definitely one comment I've received already from Commission TTC members is, how can we make sure that Bike Fitchburg or things that the bike committee are doing specifically related to bike or pedestrian access to transit stations and stops is represented in this. So I think that's a particular note for you guys to make sure you're weighing in for action items if there's things that you're doing. One thing that we've talked about is potentially there's a table kind of further below of potentially adding a roles type column here that would be relevant for, who's doing it, if that city, is that TTC, is that bike committee, so I'll say, this is a transit plan, but I think we talk about biking a lot in this. And so I just want to give everybody an opportunity. Certainly if you have comments now, we can definitely take them. Likewise, if you have additional comments, we have an online version that you can just add comments to, and it'll just track changes, and then we'll weigh those over the next month, and with the final adoption in May to council. And so I'm happy to work kind of through comments if you have, we want to kind of get a feedback loop here. But this also will serve as the formal adoption mechanism for any network redesign changes. So that's kind of the last chapter or last section of, here are the routes currently proposed. As Phil mentioned, Madison Metro's doing network redesign. So we want to make sure that, we have a mechanism for council and the committees to give feedback on these new routes. And so we kind of embedded it in the transit plan document, so that we can get that formal approval. So this will be both the transit plan and kind of network redesign changes, formal approval in May. So with that, any questions?
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Phil, I'm excited to hear the results of our trail count as we work on our goal journey. And so the floor is turned over to you.
All right. So I just got out last week to collect some trail data for the first time in a couple months. Turns out it's not easy or desirable to go out on these trails in January for just 2 hours standing around holding a dock up to a counter waiting for it to download. So I took a little bit of a break in there. Haven't had a chance to do any real analysis of the data yet, but again, these are the 7 places where we put our traffic counters back in early November, I believe. And just kind of wanted to show you that they are all working. We're getting some data from these. So this is I probably could have just showed the lower table. The lower table is the numbers I'm actually getting from the counters. It actually automatically will take the average daily total that it's calculating here and multiply that by the number of days in the month. So that's where we get this 4,000 up on the top in December on the Cannonball path, where they counted 2752, and then they kind of extrapolate out if the month is incomplete. So they did the same thing for March of 2022 because I collected the data before March had completed. So this lower table is the numbers we're actually getting. I think it's fairly notable that we're still getting really, really strong trail activity through the winter months. Maybe not a huge surprise, say, on the Cannonball path, where you still get a lot of people who maybe live in the area and are walking around. But even the Badger State Trail, that's not just a neighborhood walk kind of a location. People who are using that Badger State Trail kind of over the overpass and then down south towards McKee, that's people who are out being active. So even through the coldest months, we're definitely getting, in February, we're getting almost 100 people a day at Military Ridge, a little bit below that for Badger, maybe just quick bad mental math, 75 people a day on the Badger Trail through February. So excited about what this is going to show as we keep going forward into warmer months. I'm hoping to get some data again from the county on the Capital City Trail spur off the roundabout, because that's one that they've given us in the past. But when I asked in November, it sounded like they hadn't collected in a little while. And just really hoping this helps strengthen our case for the gold designation, as well as giving us a sense of maybe areas where if ridership is a little bit lower at one location relative to another, that might mean something about trying to look at things we can do to better encourage ridership or facilitate ridership in that area. This one is still, this bottom one here is called floating. This is the one that is currently at McKee Farms Park. So that one, probably more than any of the others, is getting a lot of pedestrian data in addition to bikes. A ton of people walk around McKee Farms Park. So I don't know how long we'll keep that location there just because of the likelihood of kind of cross-pollination, as it were. But that's what number 7 is, the floating one.
It'd be fun to put that floating one out on Wayland Road come May or June.
Yep,
But
it would be.
Want to pick up cars?
Oh, good
Well,
point.
yeah, so that's the difficulty. So if we were to get one that's embedded in the concrete, we could do something like that. But there's not a. Yeah, so the difficulty is it's just an infrared
Sure, that makes sense.
laser. I don't know if we could change the sensitivity so that anything above a certain speed it would ignore.
That's okay. I was just thinking about it.
I
Certainly
think
could be.
this
We could talk to Bike Fitchburg about doing a manual countdown at Wayland Road sometime.
I'm retired. I could do it.
We could talk to Angie about doing a manual count at Wayland Road sometime.
I think this is excellent that we have data we can now say as our case. And I'm looking, that's a lot of activity. We've only had really 2 warm days that I would classify that have loaded the road with bikes. A week ago Monday, and then one other day the week before that. So, I mean, I think we have another week, it looks like, of cold, rainy weather. But I'll tell you, I was out yesterday on the Badger State Trail, and I probably saw 10 to 15 riders. So, I mean, they're out there. This is good, Phil. Thanks for getting us this. And I think we then need to decide how we're going to couch this as we work on our gold journey, because we have to have actual data to show them, not what we think we're going to get. So if any of you folks think Phil should put these anywhere else, let him know, particularly the one that's at McKee, and make sure we're not missing anything.
And I will still keep looking into, I'll still keep looking into in the future as funding comes up through, things like this ARPA and TID one-time funding bucket or CIP budgets, whether it's worth looking to invest in more of these traffic counters, or even getting a few of the, I'm forgetting the name of the eco counters. So that's like the ones that Madison has, where they can actually embed those in the pavement. Those are better at distinguishing between bikes and pedestrians. They're better at tracking directionality. They cost quite a bit more. But if the funding's there, I have limited availability to monitor and track these, but at the same time, more data equals often better data equals more useful data for us. So that's something I'm thinking about as well at some point if we want to expand this in some way.
Yeah. On that note, I agree. If we had the funding, it would be great to get the numbers that are on road. I mean, I'm on Lacey Road and I see a lot of cyclists all through different weather, all the time. And same thing with Cheryl and Wayland Road, like Angie said. So if we could get the concrete, like the embedded ones, I think it would be really helpful to just, even like Seminole Highway, you have cyclists not using the trail. There's a lot of activity, I think, that is being missed. So
to tie into Amanda, this question is for Andrew McFadden, if he's still on the line. As you do the Cyene Road project, can you embed something there?
It doesn't look like he is. I can answer as best I can if the funding's there. So right. When the places where Madison has embedded these, it's still dedicated bike. It's separated bike lanes. So it wouldn't just be like a paved shoulder that bikes are riding on. We'd be talking about, because you're still going to get cars driving over that and that can damage it, interfere with it. We'd still be talking about something like, say, the multi-use path on Fish Hatchery between McKee Road and Greenway Cross. That's now a prime candidate for one of these traffic counters, because there is a grassy strip where you can put a counter and point it away from the road towards the trail. So now those infrared counters aren't going to have cars interfering. You can also more easily put the embedded coils underneath that pavement, because you've only got bikes riding over it. So you can count on both longevity and also not getting any weird interfering data. If we're talking about places where cars are driving, if we're talking about places where bikes are riding on a road or on a paved shoulder, I think those probably are not good candidates for anything embedded. On Cyene, I can talk with Andrew about that. My guess is that I'd have to look back at the plans. I'm trying to remember exactly what's slated there, but my best guess is that cost would be the primary roadblock there, and I'll have to see what he thinks.
Again, I just was brainstorming. Go ahead, Amanda. Miranda, go ahead. Oh, Angie.
Oh, I think Syene is narrow enough without bike lanes that you'd get a lot of car traffic on anything that was embedded.
Yeah, and my memory is that with Syene, we're adding bike lanes, but we're not adding a separated path. So that would create a complication.
Could
Well, I think this is good.
Oh, Mark?
No, go ahead. I was going to try and wrap this up. Go ahead.
Would another idea be, could we go in with Public Works on like a MyoVision type counter, which would be something that's a camera-based system that it uses like an AI recognition to tell the difference between a bike, a pedestrian, and a car. They're used by like traffic engineering firms. It might be something where there might be some utility for Public Works to have it. That would be where we could also piggyback on that, because you could then put it on a busy road, let the camera go through, and it will actually do the counting for you and tell you what's what. So just an idea out there, but that it would be too expensive for just us to have, but it might be something that Public Works could use that we could piggyback.
Yeah, that's worth considering. Yeah, I think
we may have. Go ahead, Phil.
I was just gonna say, I think especially when I think about evaluating different parts of the city for kind of form redesign. If we say, here's an area with commercial and residential, we want to make sure that it's safe for bikes and pedestrians, but that we're also kind of understanding what the current use is right now. If there's a lot more pedestrians and bikes than we realize, but we're not designing these streets to be as friendly to bike and pedestrian commercial traffic, that's something that's really good to know, just kind of as when you're looking at an overview of the entire city, not just transit, but kind of planning, Public Works, bike stuff all together. I could certainly talk to Andrew about something like that. It's not something I've ever looked into myself, so I'd have to look at that for utility.
They're a pretty cool system.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
They're really nice to intersections because they can pick up turning movements, and like they'll essentially map the intersection for you and tell you who's turning where, and was it a bike or was it a car or a truck? Or, they're very interesting.
I think this is very important because I know we've had concerns as a committee about Wayland since this all started. I've been in this committee, but I really think with Costco going in Verona, we're going to see a lot more traffic down Wayland Road, Fitchburg Road, all that way over there towards that new store. So we need to be aware of where we've got issues to keep everybody safe. So I think we put that on our future agenda. I think Andy's point's well taken. Let's figure out if we can get some more data on it and come back to it at a future date. So Phil, good work on the trail counters. Anything else you want to share for now?
Nope. No, that's it.
Okay. All right. I will keep going to the next item on the agenda. The next item was something that Andy Potts sent out to Phil and myself a couple of weeks ago. And I think it's got some merit that we need to think about as a committee, and called Be Bright at Night. So Andy, the floor is yours.
Sure. So this was actually kind of brought to my attention. This is a City of Madison program called Be Bright at Night. I believe UW also participates in it. And so one of the main causes of serious and fatal bike crashes is people biking at night without lights. And to help address this, the City of Madison has I've kind of been talking with their staff, and they've basically purchased bike lights for people, and then they have them at various locations. They primarily work through the Madison Public Library system. And then UW also does that. They primarily actually work through the UWPD, and it's essentially just getting kind of low cost bike lights out to people. I think in some ways it's kind of a pronged approach. One with the library system sort of telling people, hey, you're a lot safer if you have a light on. Also, it's the law. Come to the library and we'll give you a free bike light. And then secondly, with UW-Madison Police Department, there's a lot of college kids who this is maybe their first time primarily traveling by bike, especially when daylight saving ends. All of a sudden they're out there at night without a light on. So I think in some cases it's the PD initiating a stop saying, hey, it's the law to have a light on your bike. Rather than giving you a ticket, I'm going to give you this light. Could you please put it on so that you don't get smacked by a car? So just kind of in talking with their city staff and getting some ideas, I wondered, is this something that Fitchburg would be interested in doing? I don't know if this is necessarily a city function, if this would be a Bike Fitchburg function, just kind of throwing it out there to see, is there any interest in doing something like this at all? And if so, could we follow the City of Madison approach and go through the library? Could we kind of follow the UW approach and work with the PD, some other alternative method? Really, I just kind of wanted to open for discussion and see if there's any interest in this committee. And if so, I can kind of pursue it further and talk more with CS and kind of figure out the actual logistics behind this program.
Okay, Andy, thank you. Committee member comments.
I think that'd be great.
I agree. I've heard of the Madison program, and I think it's wonderful. So I think it would be a great thing for us to do in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
Andy, I join my two colleagues. Go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, logistically working through both the library and the PD seems to make sense.
Yep.
The library is maybe the most logical place for providing that kind of public service, but also, as we've talked about, the library isn't necessarily the most central or easy to walk or bike to location. So the PD, especially as they're talking about sort of reviving their cycling unit, I think that would be a great opportunity for some partnerships there, working on, not just having a bike unit out there, but also talking with residents about getting this safety equipment available.
And Andy, I would add two more to your list. I concur with everything it's said. I would add two more to your list. One, we have the UW safety helmet safety program sitting out in the old fire station on Lacey Road. That we could engage them. And second of all, let's get our schools. We need, the one thing as a city we have not been strong on as a city is getting our schools engaged in bike safety. And we got Verona, Oregon, and Madison. So we've got three grade schools we can approach with a plan. I think this would be a great idea. And I think it might be a joint thing with this group and Bike Fitchburg. You're going to hear from me in a minute. I'm sorry, go ahead, Angie.
We also have a middle school, and those kids ride their bikes more than the elementary school kids going to school.
Yes. So again, I think there's plenty of opportunity here. I think this is one of the creative things that I think the Bike League of America would love to see us offering. So I would support that we get some more information over the next couple of months, and by the June meeting, come up with a proposal to move forward with. I mean, what do the rest of you feel?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And one thing to add, in talking with Steve Arnold, I believe Bike Fitchburg actually has some lights already in stock. I forget who, someone donated some lights to them at one point in time, and I think they're basically just sitting on them because they didn't quite know what to do with them. So I think we might even have kind of a low-cost kickoff because I think there are some lights available at this point.
Correct. We gave those lights out at the Fitchburg. I'm sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, no, yeah, go ahead if you have an update.
Those
on
lights
that.
were given out at the Fitchburg Rodeo last fall because I was running that table. And yeah, there's a whole bag full of these lights. And I don't know where they got them, but yeah, I think Arnold has them.
Yeah, and then kind of to your point on the bike league, I think this kind of checks two of the E's, I think both education and enforcement. And
Right.
I think especially on the enforcement side, I think the bike league looks at not just are you not enforcing the laws? Because I think that's where some communities go down to is we just don't ticket cyclists at all. And I think it has to be, are you being creative with your enforcement and saying, here's a dangerous behavior, how can we correct it in a means that's not just writing a ticket?
Well, I also think that'd be a really cool thing if the police department would be willing to help, because if they pulled the bike over because they saw somebody was being unsafe and instead of giving them a ticket, gave them a light and talked to them about it, that'd be pretty golden in my opinion, if they're willing to, and I think they would be. I mean, they want people to have a positive image of them and what they do. And
well, you've got Mike Burry, who's very engaged with biking, and then Ned Hartwick, Lieutenant Hartwick. And so I think we've got colleagues and friends in the police department who would work with what we need to do. But I think these are all great ideas. And I guess I'd like to see us have a plan. So Andy, maybe you get some more info from Nate Calloway. I'm going to ask the dreaded city question. What's the cost of getting all these lights? Do we have to buy them, or is there a grant out there to get from them? So
my understanding from talking to Renee is that they have been buying them, but they've been getting a pretty good deal on them because they've been working directly with the manufacturers to get them more or less kind of at wholesale. I believe UWPD has been largely getting theirs donated.
Okay.
But then also kind of supplementing with purchases.
Okay. Thank you.
maybe a matching kind of thing where if we put in a certain amount of money, then maybe they'd be willing to match it.
Yeah, I think trying to get wholesale rates would be good. If we can work on any kind of local organization providing a donation to help buy these, that would be good. I just did a quick search of the People for Bikes grant that I applied for last year for the Fish Hatchery Hub that wasn't successful. They actually don't have any any grant cycles scheduled yet for this year, but they also specifically say they don't fund equipment purchases. So I think that would be something we might run into with a lot of grants, is that they'll, for bike kinds of things, they'll fund infrastructure but not equipment, or like public awareness safety campaigns. So probably either finding the funding in city dollars or working with a local partner might be the way to go.
Valid points. So Andy, would you mind coming back at our June meeting with a proposal that we can consider and I think look at several options for funding, as Phil said? There may be some local businesses that I can think of off the top of my head that may jump into this, but we'll see. I'll find out how many Steve Arnold has too for you, by the way. Okay, well, thank you. That's a great, I think, thing for the future for us. So next, reports to the committee. We're a little bit ahead of schedule today. So Phil, why don't you start with the gold update and then I can fill in the blanks for you here.
I might leave a lot of blanks for you to fill in. So the two things I'm most aware of on the gold front are kind of things we already discussed. So the traffic information that's we already talked about, and then also the B-cycle grant, that resolution that we voted on. Those are the two biggest things I've been focusing on that will feed into our next bike-friendly community application.
I'll fill in a couple blanks for you, for Phil here. One is going to get into a little bit of the Bike Fitchburg update that I'm going to give for Steve Arnold, but one is we are going out and recruiting 25 bike-friendly businesses here in Fitchburg. This is one of the things Amelia Neptune with the Bike League told us. We only have 2 in town now, and one's race day, and the other one is another one is a law firm in town. We're going for 25. So a subcommittee of Andy Potts, myself, Tony Hartman, and I'm trying to think who else is working with us. Help me here, Andy.
Steve and Eric.
Yes, I forgot. Eric Kimball and Steve Arnold we're each approaching 5 businesses, and we hope to have by the middle of May agreement on that. The second thing going on is we're updating the parking survey, and Bike Fitchburg is looking for volunteers to go out and check around the city for the appropriate bike racks to be able to move things forward. They're also working on getting businesses to join bike benefits. We have 6 or 8 of them here in town now. One of them, for example, is Delta Beer Lab, where if you go in with your sticker on your helmet, you get $2 off on a tap beer. The chocolate shop has a free waffle cone upgrade if you go in to get ice cream. So it's all over the map there. The other couple of things going on with the goal journey is that I'm going to send a Phil this morning during halftime of the game last night when my team was getting bombed. I started reading the results from the bike summit, and they talk about the new rules for applications coming out later on in the spring. And interestingly enough, Andy Potts mentioned the word enforcement. Enforcement's been taken out for words like equity and inclusion. So they're changing how they're looking at it. Not that those lights aren't important, but enforcement is one of the things they're trying to soften up. So I'll send it to Phil and let Phil send it to you guys, but there's a bunch of good links in there. And I think then once we have a handle on that stuff, we need to step back as a group and decide when we're going to submit. If we get the bike friendly businesses going, we get the traffic's counted. We can't have anything in planning. It's got to be done. And I think that's got to be the key to, we look at our timetable. We also look at when the window is going to open. We don't know yet when the window is going to open. My guess is it's going to be fall. I personally think everything we got going on, we've done enough work to move us up. And I talked to Amelia in February, and she said, yes, everything you're doing is good. You just got to have it in place when you resubmit. There is a lot going on. We need to continue to focus on education, diversity, and inclusion in our city for biking. And I think that's the key that is going on there. And I was going to ask Phil that in the end of this month, before our next meeting, we get our little work group back together just to assess where we are. So any questions about that goal journey? Okay. Quiet group today. So we'll keep moving forward. Joe Maldonado, council update.
No updates other than the issues that we have discussed. So we did have the plan, the ARPA-TID spending plan, and the bike rack amendment did get approved by the council unanimously. So that's good. And the amendment to remove funding for the bike lane reconstruction project was taken out before it had a chance to get voted on. So all the bike related amendments were successful.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your support there. When and if the ARPA money shows up, I think we'll have to talk to Public Work and Parks about where we install the bike racks and a plan around that, because some of the places most places have pads. So I guess we just need to know as a committee what we need to do when it shows up. So thanks for your support.
Absolutely. The other thing that I want to say is if, this summer we'll be working on our capital improvement plan updates. So just for folks on the committee that don't know, we have a sort of 10-year plan that gets updated every year on what major investments we're going to make in the city. So if there's an interest from this committee in submitting certain amendments, you know, please bring them to me and we can talk, or, you know, we can have this discussion in our meetings. And, you know, if it's a reasonable request, I'd be glad to either talk to the mayor about including it or submit my own amendments. And that process usually takes place around July. So, you know, I'll make sure to communicate that, you know, with you all as we get closer to it. That's all. I just want to give you that sort of warning fair in advance, because I know, you know, we've been sort of right up on the process, and there's been the thought like, hey, we should submit this, but I'd rather just give you that warning months in advance.
So Joe, a question: does Wayland go in that CIP? I'm still totally confused about the ultimate disposition of improving Wayland.
I don't have that info off top. Maybe if there's staff.
I don't think Andrew McFadden is still here. Phil, can you answer that question?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Andrew about it. Joe, it looked like you were still going, but you got muted.
Oh yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I defer to city staff.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Andrew's the one to ask about that, or even Bill.
He
Right.
did briefly
we need to
mention that
understand.
he's still trying to figure it out.
And then
He mentioned in his update.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Andrew did mention it very briefly in his update that he's
Right.
not sure how to proceed. Other than it'll be some sort of CIP amendment.
Okay. So yeah, so Joe, if you could watch that, and Phil, if you would just circle back to Andrew, and if there's more to report to us. I do agree, we don't want to miss anything. And I think the better we link with our city colleagues, the stronger we're going to be in the long run. It continues to be an issue for a number of us, and Bike Fitchburg, I know it's also on their agenda. So let's just track it and not lose fall. I know the mayor commented to me about SIP with that. So, but I don't know what that means. Nobody's ever given me an amount on that project. Angie.
The mayor told me when I called him before I voted last that was on his agenda and would be taken care of.
Okay. So
I'll believe it when I see it.
yeah, I just want to get a resolution to it, because, and again, so Joe, Maldonado, we don't want to miss it again.
Yeah, it's not a priority for them. So.
Yeah.
So just for if folks want to kind of read up on how the process works, if you go to, you should be able to Google Capital Improvement Plan, Fitchburg, Wisconsin. And on that, it should take you to the site that gives you information about the CIP. And that'll include the schedule of the process. So, you know, over the course of a few months, we take time in our committee of the whole meetings to be able to hear input from the community and also learn about the process. So if you want to know when those dates are and how everything works, please let me know. And I can also, you know, send that link to Phil to be able to send out to the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, Joe? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Thank you for your support and your involvement in our committee. Next, Phil, staff report is yours.
Yeah, just a couple things here. One, again, tying into the B cycle, just been meeting with city staff to talk through some of the additional support things that we're going to need to work through to make sure that B cycle can be fully implemented. Things like dealing with how do we handle putting B cycle infrastructure in the public right of way. That's something that we really, the city is pretty strict about what can go in the right of way, especially in terms of like signage. So if you want to put up a B cycle station and have a sign that says, you know, that identifies what it is, or, you know, B cycle funds some of their stations through local sponsorships and branding. Just kind of trying to work through that process right now. So that'll be an ongoing thing that hopefully we've got resolved before we start purchasing dachshund bikes. The other thing is that I think I mentioned this last year, but we found out that the Bike the Berg maps that we've put out the last couple cycles have actually been a little bit incorrect. They they indicated that the South Arboretum, just south of the Beltline, there was a mountain bike trail. So we've been working with Angela in the chamber to update that, and they've got an updated version of the maps that we're going to be putting out this year. And they're doing a little bit. They're doing a little bit of a smaller run than they normally would in anticipation of both the pump track at Leopold Park and the I think that one's actually completed now, but then the bike playground at the North Fish Hatchery Hub being done. They don't want to put that in the map until it's actually ready. So hopefully by sometime next year, we'll be able to add a new icon on those Bike the Berg maps for that bike playground. But we do have some new maps coming out this year that are resolving a couple of those things. It's, I think, all I've got for staff update.
Okay. Any questions of Phil? All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is an update from Bike Fitchburg. And Steve Arnold is working the polls today. He's doing his civic duty. So he asked me to give an update on what's going on with Bike Fitchburg. As the chair, I continue to attend the Bike Fitchburg meetings more as a listener than an active participant and advisor, but Angie and Joe Emilkowski are also on the Bike Fitchburg board. There's a lot going on with this group. I want to say they're extremely active right now. I mentioned I'm personally working with Steve and others on bike-friendly businesses, and this parking survey Steve is coordinating to get out and see, have our bike parking gone out, our approved bike parking gone up since the last survey. We've also reached out to Phil and the planning department about, as new businesses come into Fitchburg or new apartments, that as they put in bike racks, they put in the approved bike racks and provide access. So that doesn't cost us anything. That's just talking to people that as they're planning projects. At the next time, the Bike Fitchburg is be hosting a number of rodeos. So I think, Joe Maldonado, as you look at the rodeos you're planning, they're linked in with the schools or with Bike Fitchburg because they're talking to Leopold. I know they're talking about doing something up there. They're talking about doing something on the other side of Verona Road again. And they're talking around the Boys and Girls Club. That I don't know the name of that park over there, but I have been over there before. So there's a lot going on there with them. They're going to be hosting
Belmar Hills Park.
Belmar Hills, thank you. They're going to be hosting the Pick Me Up at the Border again in September, and I don't have that exact date, but it's out there on their website. And then also one of their board members, Mike Grady, is going to be getting trained to be a certified bike instructor for safety. And that's one of the things that Bike Fitchburg used to have an individual named Matthew Jones who was certified. This will give us one of the other things in our city to put on bike rodeos, to work with our schools, et cetera. So again, we're putting these building blocks in place that are going to, I think, hopefully make us a very strong entity in the future. And I think we got a pretty good job of separating what we're doing as a committee versus what Bike Fitchburg's doing as a committee. So Joe and Angie, you were also at that meeting. Do you want to add anything else on that?
The Pick Me Up at the Border is the 23rd of September.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't hit Joe Mikowski. Anything you would add from the Bike Fitchburg meeting?
Difficulties we've had at the city hall. I misread my notes and didn't realize I could have made this virtually.
Okay. Anything to add from the Bike Fitchburg meeting?
Angie covered it and you've covered it.
Okay, thank you. All right then, we are significantly ahead of schedule today. So there is one item under the announcements that the next meeting is June 7th at 7:30. I don't know if we'll be virtual or we'll be back in the conference rooms. I think that remains to be seen, and people need to continue to be flexible. And we'll see what directions we get from our city colleagues. Any other announcements from anybody else on the committee?
It's Earth Month. Friday, April 22nd. Go celebrate Earth Day. And every day. Earth Day every
Hey,
day.
Phil, I do have one more question since we got some time. Bike Fitchburg's going to try and have a meeting for May Bike Month of team. Is there going to be one for the city again this year?
Is there going to be a
bike team? Remember, May is Bike Month.
Oh, not sure yet.
Okay, well,
I
if
haven't
so,
got any
would you get
communications for the competitions, but if I do, I'll let you know.
I got
There were
one of the.
very few people who participated in that last year.
Yeah, I think we had 4 for the team, but yeah, if we get notification of it again, I'll put something together.
Or we could join Bike Fitchburg because they're going to have a team.
That would be
So
the
I think
best.
yeah, I think that's the better way to do it, Phil. Then you don't have to worry about it. So just give the city folks the link. And but I got a note from Bike to Ride last week saying join a team, and there's no teams
Interesting.
out there. So
Yeah, they didn't message me.
so anyway, okay. Any other announcements or comments for the good of the group?
Will you be cooking today?
Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Joe Maldonado. Angie, did you second?
Yep.
Seconded by Angie Lucas. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for all of your hard work.